talk about football.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 of the We Like Football podcast. It has been exactly 96 days since we last put out an episode, so this is sure to suck. There are 31 days until the Buccaneers play the Cowboys on Thursday, September 9th, so we figured what the hell, might as well do a season preview. Excited to be back here today. I am Hayden, last name, that is Andy Watkins, who proved that he can run 13 consecutive miles through about 7 different zip codes. Eating some sushi right now. Andy, how you doing, buddy?
What's happening, partner? Yeah, I'm eating this sushi that expired yesterday. You know why? Because my gullet's tough like me. Ain't no thing. As you said, I'm an avid runner. I actually just got back from a nice trot around scenic Hanover, my new hometown. I'm all jacked up on pre-workout. I'm still perspiring. I got a nice lather going on for the folks watching this on YouTube. I'm glistening, is what I would call it.
Yes, looking lovely. The flex so hard that the sleeves fell off the shirt. I went with the sleeveless shirt today as well. We don't have a ton of time. I guess we'll jump right into it. Before we start talking about quarterbacks and fun stuff like that, looking at the season ahead, we would be remiss to not mention the passing of legendary Florida State football coach Bobby Bowden. Yesterday passed away at the age of 91. His numbers were just freaking ridiculous. Dude won 377 games in 40 total seasons at the Division I level. Will certainly be missed. R.I.P. Bobby Bowden.
All right, Bobby Bowden's on the Mount Rushmore of college football coaches, to say the very least. He might be at the helm of it. So as you said, R.I.P. to a legend. Without any further ado, Hayden, there was something I wanted to discuss with you. I know a subject near and dear to your heart, one Carson Wentz.
Yeah, no, I will never be able to not talk about Carson Wentz. I will never be able to not hear about Carson Wentz. But right on cue, Carson Wentz is, of course, hurt once again in Indianapolis, because why the hell wouldn't he be? He underwent surgery already on his left foot. He's going to be out a weird ass time, 5 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, sketchy timetable, but given his dubious injury history, to say the least, we're probably going to err on the longer side with Carson Wentz. He's missed 12 games in his career, which honestly was less than I thought. However, more noteworthy, he hasn't finished a season healthy since his rookie season. Even the last time he started 16 games, he got knocked out of that playoff game in the wild card round against Seattle. Wentz was once a promising up-and-comer. Now I think he's mostly just a fragile disappointment. Which does beg the question, what are the Colts going to do at quarterback? They were, of course, a team hoping to contend for the AFC South and otherwise talented roster, but their backups are just downright lousy. They got Brett Hundley, former Packers cast-off, Jacob Eason, who played at Washington, and Sam Ellinger, who played at Texas. Hook 'em horns. Brett Hundley's the only one. Thank you. Brett Hundley's the only one of those guys who's even started a pro game before, but his touchdown to interception ratio is 9 to 13. He's not exactly a world beater. So that begs the question: Are they gonna kick around a free agent or try to make a move? What do you think?
I would pay actual money out of my pocket if they sign Nick Foles, which has been thrown around. He did kind of make the plea to reunite with Frank Reich there in Indianapolis. It is kind of tough, because their trade, or to make a trade for a new quarterback, we know they already gave up picks for Carson Wentz. I'll get it right. It's been a while since we talked. Yep. They already gave up picks for Carson Wentz. That 2018 draft class is ending their rookie contracts. That would be Quentin Nelson, who is going to be the highest paid guard in football. Darius Leonard, who just signed a 5-year, $99.5 or $99.25 million extension. Nyheim Hines is going to get paid. Braden Smith is going to get paid as well. The Colts do currently have $10 million in cap space. One of the names that I see you had on here was Marcus Mariota, who did recently restructure his contract with the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason to where it would only count as $3.5 million against the cap in 2021. So that certainly would be an option if Carson Wentz is out, into November at the worst. And of course, we're going to err on the side of the longer comeback for Carson Wentz. So I guess that could be a possibility for them. Other quarterbacks on that list you have is RG3 and Blake Bortles, both Both are definitely not what the Indianapolis Colts wanted to happen coming into this season, but they are where they are.
Another option that I kind of think would be interesting is I saw Philip Rivers said in passing something about maybe coming out of retirement. I think it was one of those who was it that came back like mid-season? Do you remember?
I do, but I'm drawing a blank because we haven't talked about football in forever.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Look, Philip Rivers, of course, is currently the head football coach at St. Michael Catholic High School in Alabama. I'm sure he's just looking for something to get him the hell out of his house with his 14 different kids. So he is staying NFL ready. He's staying NFL ready. It's not out of the question. I don't think that the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts is on the roster for what it's worth. I think they will, make a play. Marcus Mariota makes the most sense to me. RG3 is doing his NFL and college football analyst thing with ESPN. Blake Bortles was just cut by the Packers. I don't know. I guess with the roster that they have, with the talent that they have on that roster, they're going to make a push for somebody that's not Jacob Eason.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just a few other names we didn't mention. Trade targets, depending on what they might fetch for them or have to give up for them. Jimmy Garoppolo is intriguing with Trey Lance and San Fran, and Gardner Minshew, though he's in division obviously with Trevor Lawrence now in Jacksonville. If the price is right, I think the Jags would probably part with Gardner Minshew. Now, before we pivot to our next stop on the quarterback carousel, I want to touch on one more hilarious irony about this for you poor downtrodden Eagles fans, 2017 notwithstanding. Ironically, you still have a vested interest in Carson Wentz's health, even though he's not on your team. The Eagles acquired a first-round pick for one Mr. Wentz, and that was conditional based on playing time. What was it, 75% required?
Yes, 75% of the regular season, or 70%, and the Colts make the playoffs. If they start off not super hot with one of those quarterbacks that's on the roster, it's essentially going to be a second round pick. I appreciate you allowing me to bitch about this. I see you have that on the document because, of course, I have to. Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz could return as early as week 2 and as late as week 9, depending on how long his recovery takes. It honestly could open the door to some sort of chess game for the Colts, because I mean, just the same way that the Eagles have that vested interest, the Colts also have a vested interest. If Carson Wentz doesn't play those 75% of the regular season snaps, they end up keeping their first round pick and only give up their second round pick. So they might err on the side of caution and allow Carson Wentz to really make a full recovery and then some before coming back. I mean, granted, that all depends on how they play with Carson Wentz still being sidelined. Quentin Nelson is also somebody who had the same injury, has that same like weird 5 to 12 week timetable for his return as well. I don't know. The bottom line, man, the Eagles separated themselves from an injury-prone quarterback who his missed time is ultimately going to be his legacy. He was, like you mentioned, a promising up-and-comer at MVP favorite in 2017, and now he needs to be wrapped in bubble wrap. The Colts gamble, it might end up being costly because they're essentially going to pay Carson Wentz to rehabilitate himself. In a phrase, good riddance. I hope that I don't have to keep freaking talking about Carson Wentz. That is where I'm at.
All right, so we'll move on then. My second stop here on the quarterback carousel, I got a few for us, and I do want to pivot. I consider myself something of a QB expert as someone who once blocked for a high school quarterback turned Canadian football wide receiver. Let's not forget to mention that. Anyhow, I'm essentially all day. I'm essentially a CFL player. Number 2, do the Bears really plan to start Andy Dalton?
Could you imagine? I mean, they did.
Do the Bears really plan to start Andy Dalton?
They did name him as QB1. I remember saying that to you when I saw you a couple of weeks ago. I guess it was a week and a half ago. Whatever.
Not a week ago.
Yeah, I guess. Man, okay. So Matt Nagy essentially is coaching for his job this year. He's been 28-20 in his 3 years as head coach in Chicago. It seems like playing the red rifle over the 11th pick in the 2021 draft is a weird ass play to try to keep your job.
they moved up for Justin Fields. They parted with Mitch Trubisky, who on the field is mediocrity personified, and they just got a perfect facsimile in Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is mediocrity, and he might be trending downward from that. In his last 2 seasons, he's 6-16 as a starter. He has 30 touchdowns to 22 interceptions. He segged into a true backup role over the last season and a half, and now we're gonna pretend Andy Dalton's a starter. Look, the Bears were a playoff team last year. Granted, that was with the addition of a 7 seed. They were a squeaky playoff team, but a playoff team nonetheless. But their best shot to contend would seem to be with Justin Fields, allowing him to take his lumps early in the season and progress as it moves along. With Andy Dalton under center, they're 500 at best.
I mean, he was essentially 500 last year when he came in for Dak. He went 6-5, had a quarterback rating of 53.8. So not necessarily good. Yeah, like I mentioned with Matt Nagy, you would think that his selling point would be, hey, look, there's a future with me. Your future is not going to be Andy Dalton, Mr. Nagy. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. The Bears schedule isn't really super easy either. They open with the Rams, then they have the Bengals and Browns and Lions, and then the Raiders before they essentially get to a buzzsaw in the middle of the season with the Packers, the Bucks, the 49ers, and the Steelers before their bye week, and they come back and play the Ravens. I can't imagine we see Andy Dalton for more than 3 or 4 games, especially if things aren't going well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem it seems illogical. Now, granted, I understand the argument for bringing guys along, but that seems to be the product of a bygone era now. You learn through experience. Justin Fields, from all reports I've seen, has looked very good in camp. Obviously, we'll get a better look at him through the preseason. But this, to me, feels like a smokescreen that Ryan Pace is weirdly committed to. Hopefully, Matt Nagy doesn't buy into it because, as you said, that'll probably be his job. But we'll see in a month or two. I'm guessing Justin Fields will really be the guy under center.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of people were not super high on Justin Fields. I'm not so sure why. All he did was go to one of the best football programs in America and just win. So I don't really see what the downside is with him. But yeah, no, Andy Dalton is not the future of the Chicago Bears. I don't think we're breaking any ground here, but I don't think Andy Dalton is the future of the Chicago Bears.
But he may be the best red-headed quarterback of all time. So not for nothing. We'll have to check that and return to it. But
yeah. I mean, he's the best one in the league right now because the other one's freaking hurt all the time. All right. All right.
We're moving past Wentz. Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tended to well. Let's move on to a quarterback who's actually good. Josh Allen. That he's good and he is now freaking rich. He signed a 6-year extension worth up to $258 million. Of course, we know that in football, only the guaranteed money really counts. There's $150 million guaranteed. $43 million every year is going to be second to Patrick Mahomes. We always see quarterbacks kind of reset the market. It makes sense a little bit that Josh Allen was the one who did that now.
Yeah, it's crazy how much quarterback contracts have grown because think it was only just a hair under 10 years ago, Joe Flacco got $20 million per year annually, and our pets' heads were falling off over it. Jaws were dropping across the country because Joe Flacco got $20 million. That's backup money now almost. Josh Allen made bank, and to be honest with you, it's well deserved from what we've seen. He's got a rocket arm. He looks good in shorts. The kid's a gamer. He's tough. He's fun to watch. Hey, we're back, baby.
There we are.
Anyhow, I'm trying to even make an argument or lend credence to the argument that the Bills overpaid for Josh Allen, but this is what it costs to secure a franchise quarterback in today's NFL, especially if you're Buffalo. This isn't a major market. Josh Allen, if you let him sniff the open market and let big teams with fat wallets get in his ear, you're probably not getting him back. You're still the Buffalo Bills. Great job by them to lock him up when they had the opportunity to.
Yeah. Now, I apologize, man. So we kind of saw in the 2016 draft class with, of course, Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. Can't get the hell away from him, man. Can't get away from him. We saw them drafted in 2016. Goff and Wentz both signed those extensions in 2019, being like the highest paid quarterbacks in the league or whatever at the time. Of course, Josh Allen was drafted in 2018, extended in 2021. So there is still that kind of 3-year gap. This is what GMs are doing to try to save themselves money down the road. It seems crazy to say that you're going to pay somebody $150 million guaranteed and actually save money. But barring another like COVID kerfuffle, the salary cap is going to continue to increase. Right now it's at $182.5 million in 2021. That's going to rise up to $208.2 million in 2022. The NFL is signing an agreement with Amazon to exclusively stream their Thursday night football games. That kicks in 2023. That's going to continue to increase revenue. So their salary cap will continue to increase. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 220, 230 in a couple of years. As that salary cap increases, of course, the most important position on the field at quarterback, they're going to make ridiculous, almost baseball money in the future. So by extending these young quarterbacks, now you are gambling that they are going to continue to be good, but it is something that can save you money down the road. We also saw that these like mega deals aren't impossible to ship out. Both Goff and Wentz got shipped out this offseason. They had those mega deals. The salary cap, you have teams that make it look like it's not a thing, like the Saints or the Chiefs. I don't think that Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills overpaid at all for Josh Allen, especially at this point.
Yeah, those are strong arguments made, as you said, and I mostly am just saying this because I love to say the word, but the salary cap is super fungible. And as you said, all these teams with young passers, they seem to hedge their bets, hedge against the market, so to speak, because as you've said, it only rises and will continue to rise. There are, of course, another couple of young AFC signal callers nipping at Josh Allen's heels, waiting for their own next big contract. Two guys in the AFC North, rivals of my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers, Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. That kind of begs the question to pivot off of Josh Allen. Will they reset the market or will they fall in line behind him?
I think that Josh Allen kind of set the market here. Now, I think they'll end up when they sign their extensions, and both will. I think they'll be close to Josh Allen. I mean, that number just is ridiculous to look at on paper. Of course, we saw Patrick Mahomes sign like a 10-year, $500 million deal last year, right? I don't know if they necessarily reset the market, but those even younger guys like Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence in a couple of years, they are going to make ridiculous money.
Yeah, those boys are seeing dollar signs. I wish I was that good at football.
I wish you were that good at football too. I feel like I would benefit from that, being your friends. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'd be in the posse for sure. Arla, you'd have a brand new car, the works. Ron, I would get you knee implants. You'd be 6'4".
I mean, you're in great shape. I don't know if it's out of the question. Now maybe we'll get some QB work in the next time that I roll through there. Good for you, Josh Allen.
Good for Josh Allen. Anyway, we'll move on here. We'll get off the quarterback carousel and we'll start talking about a little fantasy football. Drafts are fast approaching. We've got a few different subjects to discuss, and I'm here to lend my expertise to you. Me and Hayden's league is actually being reprised for the, 10th, 11th, 12th season. We've been at it for a while. Shouts to More Beer, which keeps chugging along. I am a
chugging.
I am a 0-time champion of that league. So anyway, let me lend you my expertise in the realm of fantasy football. The first question I have here is Travis Kelce worth a first-round pick?
Is it my turn to answer? Okay, hell yes. Yeah, no, he absolutely is. In PPR leagues, which is, I feel like that's fairly standard. Most people play in PPR leagues. He averaged 20.3 points per game in 2020, 13.3 in non-PPR leagues last year. His numbers might not be as high this year, but he's going to consistently get you 18 points a game if you're in a PPR league. Early first round, it might be a stretch because you got the bigger names, the Kamaras, the Devontae Adams, Dalvin Cooks. That might make a little bit more sense, especially to people who are going to take the star running back or the high yardage receiver early. But if you're a later first round pick, especially in like a serpentine draft where you're not waiting 10, 12, 14 picks to make your second one, I would not have any sort of issue taking Travis Kelce in the first round.
Yeah, as a traditionalist, I would typically take umbrage with drafting a tight end in the first round, but Kelce just he's proven to be an exception to that rule. Last year, he had 105 catches, 1,416 yards, 11 touchdowns. He wasn't just fantasy's number one tight end. He was a number one wide receiver. He is a gigantic advantage to have at the tight end position because you'll be 5 points better than your opponent every week, and that's the floor. The ceiling's much higher. Among non-quarterbacks, Travis Kelce was fantasy's 7th highest scoring player last season. So that's all skill players. The only ones that bettered him: Alvin Kamara, Devontae Adams, Dalvin Cook, guys you mentioned, and of course Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. So Travis Kelce is a number one asset, and to me, the advantage you get from selecting him is greater than the difference between, say, Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs, or Calvin Ridley and Terry McLaurin. There's suitable depth at those positions that you can make up the difference and still have a giant advantage with Kelce on your team.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you are picking him in the first, you're getting those serviceable guys with your second pick. You're getting the Joe Mixons, the Antonio Gibsons. Antonio Gibson might lead the league in like yards from scrimmage. That dude is ridiculous, and I think they're going to use him, and he'll be a valuable asset on fantasy teams. Keenan Allen is another person that you're probably getting, in the second round. And again, serpentine leagues like our draft is a serpentine draft. I may take Travis Kelce with the first pick as pick number 9. You mentioned that you are a 0-time champion. I'll flex a little bit. I am a 2-time champion in the More Beer Fantasy League, and last year I just laid an egg. I finished almost dead last. The only person who was worse than me, shout out to Mike Veronic, had Dak Prescott starting for the entire year after he ripped his leg in half in week 5. So yeah, I mean, expertise is what you are getting at the We Like Football podcast, especially when it comes to fantasy football.
Listen, I do a lot of mock drafts. I pride myself on being prepared, but I never freaking win. I am Peyton Manning before that fucking fluke against the Bears. I'm a choker. It is what it is. Anyway, here's some more of my expertise.
Right.
All our loyal viewers. Mom, you don't even play fantasy football. What do you do? Just skip ahead. Anyhow, well, I'm sorry.
Hey, it's all good. My parents actually do play fantasy football. Arla plays fantasy football, so I'm sure she is locked in and listening to what we have to talk about. Let's talk about running backs.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about Travis Kelce. Before he's going off draft boards, of course, the first tier of fantasy running backs will precede him. That group has kind of materialized this year, as it does every year. And it's full of names you've heard of: Christian McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, Kamara,
tomato, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next tier is where it gets a little more interesting. I think it features a lot of guys with that kind of prolific potential, but a few more question marks. And here I'm going to rank them for you. You can piggyback off it if you like. I'll tell you the backs in question. It's Zeke Elliott of the Cowboys, Nick Chubb, Browns, and Jonathan Taylor, Colts. For me, the personal favorite, my pick, if I'm number 5 overall, is going to be Nick Chubb. He's a throwback player, a physical runner that harkens back to a bygone era. And in spite of that gaudy orange helmet he wears, he's a personal favorite of mine. There's arguments to be made against him that those other 2 guys don't have, predominantly Kareem Hunt cutting into his workload. But from my perspective, that keeps his legs fresh. It keeps him more effective. It didn't stop him whatsoever last year. Nick Chubb, he was fantasy's number 11th highest scoring running back. That was per ESPN standard scoring. So that may vary some, but that's what I got from ESPN. And that was while missing 4 games. That's not points per game. That's overall 11 while he missed 4 games. Had he not missed time, his per game average would have been good for 4th in the league. So you see that high end potential. He scored double-digit touchdowns in just 12 games last year. He plays in a run-first offense. He's got fresh legs. He's still under 600 carries for his career, and that's 3 seasons in. Not bad for a true workhorse back. He just got that big new contract. I expect the Browns to get their money's worth out of him. Nick Chubb, for me, is first among those backs. Next, I have Zeke Elliott. Zeke got poo-pooed last year, and I don't think it was entirely fair. He still put up 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. 1,300 scrimmage yards, not rush, but nonetheless. And that was with Nobody's a quarterback. Garrett Gilbert and Ben DiNucci. Who? Um, Zeke, they're saying he's in tremendous shape now. He looks ready to eat. And obviously with Dak back at the helm, everything's set up for him to succeed. That O-line isn't the group of hog mollies it was a few years ago, but Zeke will be fine, especially with the prolific passing offense around him. But defenses won't be able to key in on him like they were last year. The only argument against him or for Chubb over him for me is Zeke is he's getting a little long in the tooth as far as backs go, especially in terms of workload. He is 1,650 career touches, so over 1,000 more than Nick Chubb. That for me is the difference. You never know who's going to get hurt. I'm not wishing or predicting injury, but if you were to guess who of the two would be more likely, I tend to lean Zeke. Lastly, among those three backs, my third is Jonathan Taylor. And to be honest, when I started doing mock drafts maybe a month ago, and I was in the 5 slot there, I was taking Taylor. I liked his potential the highest. However, the injuries around him now are what worry me. Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson, those are both huge. Until we see them get a new quarterback in there, whoever it may be, it's just tough to trust he'll be able to produce on that same level in an offense where teams will be able to key in on him so closely. So for me, the difference just tends to come down to offensive proficiency. If you're in a better offense, I'm just going to tend to favor you overall. So for me, it's Chubb, Elliott, Taylor. What do you think?
Yeah, I was leaning the same way as well, but we have to differ in some way. There's no way that I can make the argument against Chubb. Chubb is a clear-cut number one. Went down to the beach last weekend. On the way, I was listening to a podcast that's not nearly as important as this one, of course, but I heard a stat that was pretty ridiculous. So in 2020, and this is one of those like weird, oddly specific stats, but in 2020, in the fourth quarter, Nick Chubb averaged 10 yards per carry. Now, again, that's just in the fourth quarter, right? And it's one of those like weird, oddly specific stats, but good Lord, 10 yards per carry in the fourth quarter is just ridiculous. He's going to continue to eat, even with splitting time with Kareem Hunt. You got to think that the workload is going to be 60-40 or 65-35 for Chubb, right? He's still going to touch the football quite a bit. You mentioned that they are a run-first offense. So, I mean, Chubb to me is the clear-cut favorite. I switched around Jonathan Taylor and Zeke. Again, I'm not super sold on this. I just wanted to be a little bit different than you. Jonathan Taylor has a super high ceiling. He did have 1,000 scrimmage yards and 11 touchdowns in 2020. He is going to be the feature back in Indy, so not quite splitting time with Nyheim Hines, kind of like Chubb would be with Kareem Hunt. A dud at quarterback might make Frank Reich rely more heavily on the run game. If you can't throw the ball, right, there's not a whole lot else you could do. We know that offense does utilize running backs in the passing game as well. So in PPR leagues, he's got a super high ceiling. And then I had Zeke at third out of these three backs. Of course, he is going to benefit from having Dak back under center. Hopefully Dak's shoulder injury, which isn't really being talked about a lot right now, but hopefully it's not super serious. Hopefully it's not significant, and he is still able to kind of go week one. I just think that Dallas has so many mouths to feed. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Amari Cooper, you have Michael Gallup, Blake Jarwin, or Dalton Schultz, whichever one of those dudes emerges as the tight end. Kellen Moore mentioned in an interview recently that he is going to be focusing on spreading the ball around. So it might take some of the workload off of Zeke. Again, I'm not super sold like 2 and 3. It's kind of 2A and 2B for me, but I just wanted to be different than you.
Right. Yeah. Naturally a contrarian, as always. Anyway, I know, I know our clock is ticking here, so we'll move along quickly. We're going to talk about a couple of sleepers, a few sleepers that I have, or at least I've noticed in my mock drafts, are maybe going a little lower than they should be. I'll just zoom through the names quick, and then we can move on. First, among the running backs, Darrell Henderson of the Rams. Of course, he's moved into the pole position since Cam Akers went down for the year with, what was it, a torn ACL or Achilles? I know.
Achilles. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Darrell Henderson, of course, is now expected to be the lead back. He was at times last season and played reasonably well. He had 785 scrimmage yards, 6 touchdowns, not bad. But that was with Jared Goff kind of struggling all year long. They obviously, with Matt Stafford, appear poised to have a more potent offense. Darrell Henderson should be the beneficiary of that. And with an ADP, which means average draft position for those who aren't in the know, in the 6th round, Darrell Henderson's going as a fringe RB2, RB3. That's too low for a lead back in any offense, especially one as potent as the Rams could be. So I like him for where he's going. Good value. Another one, good value pick, Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett was number 8 in fantasy last season. He had 100 catches, a little over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, and yet he's just the 23rd wideout off the board. That to me is way too low. I know he was inconsistent. Obviously, he's second fiddle to DK Metcalf, but Russell Wilson's a 4,000 yard guy every year. Tyler Lockett, you could pencil in for about 1,000 of those yards. For me, he's a solid wide receiver too, and he's being drafted like a 3. So cash in on Tyler Lockett if you can. Another good value. A guy he's going behind that surprised me was Jamar Chase. I don't want to talk about Chase too much, but I wanted to mention one of his teammates, T. Higgins. He was just shy of 1,000 yards himself last year, and he's being drafted with a bunch of guys that he wildly outproduced because of the presence of Chase. Again, all these offenses are going to throw for 4,000 plus yards. We've never seen a more prolific passing era. There's ample room for the T. Higgins, the Tyler Boyds to eat. Don't be afraid to draft a 3rd receiver just because he's a 3rd receiver. We've seen several guys threaten 1,000 yards. T. Higgins, I expect to be one as well, especially with Joe Burrow back and healthy. Same thing for another wide receiver I like, especially for where he's going, Michael Gallup. You mentioned him before. You know, the Cowboys have a bunch of mouths to feed, so people are shying away from Gallup. But he's been nothing but productive 2 years in the league. He threatened 1,000 yards last season with, again, Garrett Gilbert and Ben DiNucci. Who are those guys? Where did they come? Does anyone know where Ben DiNucci went to college? Don't tell me. I don't ever want to know. I don't ever want to know.
No, but I know they both played on Thursday in the Hall of Fame game. So there is that. Yeah, no, I'm with you. The Tyler Lockett, you know, going as low as he is, I mean, that dude has ridiculous value. You mentioned Russell Wilson's going to be a 4,000 yard guy pretty much every year. I also had Darrell Henderson as one of my fantasy sleepers before I saw your list, so we're not going to differ there. You mentioned with Cam Akers being out with that Achilles injury, Darrell Henderson is going to be their featured back. Sean McVay finds creative ways to run the football all the time. They also utilize their running backs in the passing game. So that dude is going to give you some value at running back. In 2020, he had 600 rushing yards and almost 200 receiving yards and 6 total touchdowns. That's even being behind Cam Akers. So he's somebody that's going to give you value. Another, and I don't know if this is necessarily a sleeper, but somebody that should be poised to have a breakout year is Jerry Jeudy on the Denver Broncos. He had 856 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2020, but that quarterback competition is interesting. If Teddy Bridgewater can win that quarterback one job over Drew Lock, last year in Carolina, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore each had career high receiving yards with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback. Jerry Jeudy could certainly benefit from having Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Cortland Sutton, of course, is returning from his ACL injury. I feel like he's coming back a little bit slower than folks had anticipated. So that might impact his fantasy numbers. But again, if Teddy Bridgewater can win that job, Jerry Jeudy is somebody else to target there. And then another fantasy sleeper that I had is Mike Davis on the Falcons. Dude played really well when he came in for Christian McCaffrey in Carolina last year. We know that Arthur Smith is taking over as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and you saw the production that you're getting from Derrick Henry in that Titans offense. I'm sure that Arthur Smith is going to bring over a run first type of offense to the Atlanta Falcons. So he's somebody else that might be, you know, worth your time, especially in those later rounds.
Yeah, I've been liking Davis as well for where he's going. Again, I talked about offensive potency. He's in an offense that looks set up well to succeed. It's like the weapons around him, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, for those reasons, I think will open up space for him and he should be able to benefit. So yeah, Mike Davis, another one I like. Anyhow, from a 0-time champion, you folks need any advice, hit me up. I'm on Twitter, Andrew Watkins 10. We can be friends in real life too.
Nice. Nice. Toss it out the Twitter handle, Coach Hayden 72. Let's go.
Follow We Like Football podcast. Anyhow, we'll touch on a couple odds and ends here. Hayden, do you like the addition of a 17th regular season game? We never got to this.
Of course, I like the 17th game. Hell yes. More football is always a good thing. For me, obviously there is now a higher risk for injury, just adding another game, another week for players. So I could see why they might be a little bit ticked off about it, right? But from a fan's perspective, absolutely injected into my veins. Give me another game for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
How could I disagree? I'm sorry. I'm chewing a protein bar.
Protein bars and sushi. It's a weird combination.
Whatever. My gut is strong. We mentioned this. Don't worry about a damn thing. Anyhow, yeah, it's hard for me to contradict that because the name of the show is We Like Football. I'll always like more football. Of course, I understand why players are ticked about it. Understandably so, and I think the league should do more to try and make it more palatable for the players, whether that be through the addition of an extra bye week or some ideas I've seen kicked around. Granted, these are mostly on comment boards, but it still does seem worth considering. Restrict players to 16 games a season. That way everybody has 1 week built-in rest. And then there are other added benefits to that. Depth players could see valuable time. It'd be interesting to see how teams approach that kind of change. Do they hold out hope for a meaningless finale and sit everyone? Do they stagger the rest throughout the year, or do they sit everyone in week 4 against the Texans or whatever their schedule's equivalent is? It's something to consider. I'll never decry more football, but I do think some changes need to be made. This schedule could still be worked around and make it more palatable for the players.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you see sports with longer seasons, the basketballs, the hockeys, the baseball, there is some sort of load management to make sure that your star players are healthy and ready to go when you actually need them. You can't really do that in football. A lot of these division races come down to 1-2 games, right? So you can't just really throw away a game or rest your starters. Granted, there is those end of the season games where teams do so that they're healthy in the playoffs. It is going to be interesting to see how teams strategize for that and make sure that their players stay healthy for this year. And then of course we have the COVID factor this year as well. Thought we were going to kind of be out of that, but the teams that now are not as vaccinated as others, right? That could play a role into it as well. If a player can't play for a week due to COVID or what have you, right? It just adds another factor into the whole kind of discussion, even with that 17th game.
Yeah, you mentioned basketball and basketball and baseball. That's another thought I hadn't even considered. What about a built-in, something like All-Star break? Every team gets a 2-week bye or something like that right in the middle of the season. I don't know. It's just something to consider. Anyhow, another one I have here for our odds and ends category is preseason football worth watching?
So for normal people, maybe not. I am a football junkie and I come by it honestly. I watch Division II playoffs when they're on. I watch the weird leagues. I watch the spring league this year. I go to Division III college football games. I freaking study high school football, for the love of God. So any football is good football for me. Obviously, the outcome doesn't matter in preseason games, but there is other reasons to watch it. I'll let you push back on that before I give some of those reasons. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, I respect your argument. And a high school football game presented to me as a high school football game or a D3 game or what have you, because I've watched a few of those in my own time. I enjoy them for what they are. But for me, it's a different when you expect the quality of play that you should be getting from the NFL. The reason I introduced this subject I want to touch on is because my brother, a diehard fake Cowboys fan, and he's watching. Who is Ben DiNucci? He texted me before the Hall of Fame game to talk smack. My response was, it's preseason. I appreciate the effort, but I can't bring myself to care. It's a quarterback duel between Mason Rudolph and Ben DiNucci. Who are you? That hardly represents either franchise at their best. I'll turn the game on, but it becomes background noise to me, usually before the first quarter's over. Um, Maybe that's sacrilege from the host or co-host of We Like Football. But I'll bide my time till the real thing comes around. The Alliance of American Football in professional uniforms, it just doesn't cut the mustard for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I mentioned, I am certainly the weird one here. I am not what you would consider normal, especially from a football perspective. I think that for people who don't care about the preseason, again, like normal people, it does give you an opportunity to focus on part of the game that maybe you wouldn't watch. When you are vested, when you have a vested interest in the game and the outcome, you could watch offensive line play like I do. Again, I'm weird. You could pay attention to like coaches' schemes, like for example, in the Hall of Fame game, watch how Matt Canada uses his pre-snap motions, utilizes like jet sweeps and things like that. He ran a ton of like tight bunch sort of formations, so there are other reasons. You could also appreciate individual efforts. You could watch people have their dreams realized or shattered just in a couple games where, they're either making a team or they're not making a team. I'm one of those weird people that picks up on like blitz pickups. Like who the hell was the guy? Rico Dowdle. Had no idea who Rico Dowdle was going into the Hall of Fame game, but that dude had a blitz pickup in the second quarter that I was like, oh man, that was phenomenal. He sorted out sort of the defensive line stunts, came up, stonewalled a linebacker, the B gap. I don't think the pass was completed. I don't think it was anything worthwhile, but it was pretty cool to watch. And then you get to see kind of new players like Micah Parsons was somebody that we talked about in our last episode of We Like Football. That dude was flying around sideline to sideline for the limited time that he was in. He looks small as shit in that number 11 jersey. He really does look kind of skinny, but he was fun to watch kind of flying around there. So for me, yeah, preseason football, while it doesn't matter, I am going to tune into every game that I can.
I appreciate that you snuck another fun to watch in there. I appreciate your counter argument. One thing I do want to ask is, did this Rico person play for my team or the other one?
He played for the team in white. He did.
Okay, he stinks.
That's fair.
Anyhow, we got a couple minutes left. Let's hike it or spike it before we get on with our days. Number one, hike it or spike it. Spending a day at the beach is better than spending a day at the pool.
Okay, so I mentioned that I did go to the beach last week, I guess it was, with my wife and my mother-in-law. I need to spike this. A day at the pool for me is much better than a day at the beach. You don't get sand in places where sand shouldn't be. I am somebody who can't really sit for a long period of time. I know that there's people that can go and lay on the beach all day, take a nap, drink a couple beers, whatever. I just don't have it in me. I end up like digging holes in the sand with my feet or something because I'm just restless. So I would prefer a day at the pool over the day at the beach.
Yeah, actually, my wife and I just got back from the beach a few weeks ago ourselves. Same story here. I'm going to have to spike it. I had a good time at the beach, don't get me wrong, but the factors working against it, the pool simply does not have. You don't have to worry about getting sand in your crevices, as you mentioned. There's no goals around. You don't have to share the pool side with the peasants of society. It's all yours, the pool. It's beautiful in that way. And when you're tired of being wet, you just dry off and you go on with your day. You don't have to. It's not a huge production. The beach is fun for what it is. I enjoyed it. I will return as the wife drags me there. But for me, poolside wins every day of the week.
And I mean, something that I feel like is not talked about enough, there are sharks. Sharks are a real thing. There was a shark attack like 20 blocks up from where we were staying like 2 days before we went there. I'm not going anywhere near the shark's house. You live there. I will stay in the sand. That's fine. Keep the sharks, man. Keep the sharks. The second hike it or spike it, we'll go grill edition here. So a hamburger is a better grill food than a hot dog. I could just like it.
I'm going to hike that with a caveat.
Okay.
A cheeseburger, not a hamburger, cheeseburger.
Of course. Yeah.
A cheeseburger off the grill, yes, is better, factually speaking, than a hot dog. Mm-hmm. Just if you're grilling. Mm-hmm. But if you're at a barbecue, a BBQ with the boys, crushing a couple bush lattes or what have you.
For sure.
hot dog, it just tastes like America. It tastes like summer. It's handheld. So too is a burger, but there's something, a hot dog, it just slides down your gullet nice and easy, buddy. Give me a shitty 89-cent hot dog with yellow mustard on it and a gross beer, a Key Light, a Busch Light, something like that, and put me poolside, and I'm happier than I'll ever be at the beach.
Bringing it back to the original Hike It or Spike It. Hell yeah, I love it. I've gone back and forth on this one. I think, oh man, you know what? I'm going to hike this one as well. I love me a cheeseburger, but I don't think you can go wrong with a hot dog either. I am the type of person who's going to get one of each, if we're being honest. Yeah, I'm getting one of each. But yeah, a cheeseburger, American cheese coming off the grill is just delightful. Yeah, can't beat a hot dog. Go to 7-Eleven, get the big bite or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm taking a cheeseburger over a hot dog most days of the week. Give it to me by the pool. My beer taste is a little bit higher class than, let's say, the peasants that you might be sharing time with at the beach. But yeah, no, I'll take a cheeseburger over a hot dog too.
Yep, but give me one of each. We like food. We like football. Catch you later, losers.
We like football.